Hello everyone, it's Patty Behan and I want to thank you for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this adorable card using Wendy Vecchi's newest stamp set, Doodle Town, and I'm going to use some liquid pearls. I'm going to teach you how to paint with archival ink re-inkers and pads, and so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is paint the background for our card. And I'm using some mini archival ink pads, and I'm going to use some 91% isopropyl alcohol. This is a Dina Wakley media pouring bottle, and I attached the thin tip applicator, and I put my alcohol in there to make it easy to pour. And I'm using a Wendy Vecchi white card panel that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And to start, I'm going to use the Forget-Me-Not archival ink, and I'm just going to rub it on my craft sheet here till I get a good amount of ink there. And I'll put some alcohol in here to get it fluid because we want to make a wash of color in our background. So I just want to make sure this is all mixed together. And then once it looks good, I'm going to go ahead and just wipe the color across the card, and I'm going to do like about 3/4 of the way down because this is my sky. Once I like how it looks, I'll go on to the next color. I'm going to clean out my brush. I have some alcohol in this little cup here, and I want to make sure I clean out my brush pretty good, and then I have a cloth to wipe it off to make sure it's clean. And by the way, I'm using a 3/4 inch Ranger Artist brush, and now I'm using my next color, leaf green, and repeating the same process, and then this is how it looks. Now we are going to stamp our images and paint them in, and again I'm using Wendy's Doodle Town stamp set here, and I'll be using jet black archival to stamp and embossing them with clear embossing powder. And what I did was I have a Dina Wakley media stamping block, and I put all the images on the block, and I'm going to stamp them all at once. I'm going to be embossing all these images you see here, and I'll be using a piece of Wendy Vecchi Perfect cardstock. Again, it's her white panel. And so first we want to ink up the stamp with the jet black archival. And I want to make sure I get a nice coverage of ink on here, so I'm going to be very careful, so I only have to stamp this one time, and then I make sure I press it down on every single image separately before I lift it off. And now I'm taking my Ranger clear embossing powder, and I'll pour it over the whole image. Archival ink is an oil-based pad, so it stays wet longer, and that's why it allows you time to emboss with it. And if you miss a spot, you could pour some more back on, and then we'll put this excess powder back into the jar, and then we'll take a heat tool to emboss it. And as you can see, once the powder is melted, the image gets darker. And the reason why we're embossing it is because we're using archival ink mixed with alcohol, and if we don't emboss it, the archival ink by itself will just bleed on the paper. So now we're ready to paint these in, and I'm getting a rag here, and I have my number 2 brush from the Ranger Artist brush set, and I'm going to use re-inkers. And I'm going to paint in starting with the sunflower re-inker. I'm just going to apply a small dot of the ink onto the craft sheet. The colors are very dense when it's a re-inker, so what we want to do is take our 91% alcohol and just thin it out a bit here and make the color lighter. And you mix it in until you get the desired shade. I want more of a yellow than the orange, so I'm adding a little more alcohol. And once you have the color you think you want, you can test it on your paper before you paint anything. Okay, and then we'll give it a test, and I think that looks good, so we're ready to paint in our sun. We'll do that first, and then we'll go ahead and we'll paint the little rays of the sun right here. And you don't want to use too much of the re-inker on your brush because it does have a tendency to bleed a little bit. So I'm painting in the windows next and the little scallops on the rooftop here. And now I'm going to speed this up and color in all these houses. This is cactus flower and bluebird. And then next I'm using sunflower and periwinkle. And then now I'm using garden patina and poppy for this next house. And then for the mailbox, I'm going to use some watering can and then some fern green for the grass there. Now I'm going to bring this up close so you can see it. And I'm going to cut these out and I'll be right back. Okay, now we have all of our pieces cut out. I have a card here that's a Wendy Vecchi perfect card, and it's an A2 size card. I have my background and some archival ink, liquid pearls, and we're going to do one more stamping with this little cloud here. And first I want to place all my pieces onto the background to see where I'm going to put them. And I want to have that house at the bottom in the foreground and then these other houses in the background here. And then I'll just place the other things, and I already stamped out the cloud, and since I know where I wanted to place the sun, I put a little dot there with the pencil, and I'm going to see where I want these clouds. And so this looks good here, and I'm going to put a little dot underneath so I know to stamp that over there, one there, and then another one over there. Now I'm going to take the jet black archival ink and I'm going to stamp all of those 3 images, and now we're going to glue everything down before we add liquid pearls to the clouds. And I'm popping up some of the images with clear foam tape, and others I'm just using double-sided adhesive so that they lay flat, and so it gives it a little more dimension and depth. And I've also put double-sided tape on the back here, and I'm going to attach it to my card front, just like so. And now for the final step, we're going to add white opal liquid pearls into the clouds there. And what I want to do is put some onto my craft sheet. You always want to test your bottle of liquid pearls to make sure it's flowing before you actually start using it. And then I'm using a Wendy Vecchi Make Art Stylus tool to paint in the clouds here. And this is a great detail tool to use to get into small areas, especially with liquid pearls. And I don't want it to lay flat, so I want it to be kind of bumpy, so I'm just coloring inside the lines, and then there you have it. Gives that nice little extra pearlized look to the clouds. They look so dreamy. I think this would be the perfect card to give to a friend, to send them a special message, or just let them know you're thinking of them. So if you'd like to give this a try, we have a link to the full supply list in the description box below. And also, if you'd like to see more crafty videos, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.